Members of council were advised by staff that due to vacations, the minutes from the April 6th meeting will be produced at a following meeting subsequent to this evening. So we'll deal with the next item on the agenda, which is the disclosure of any pecuniary interest by members of council. Councillor Peter Angelo.
Thanks, Your Worship. Report PRC 2009-22 dealing with the youth education rate for schools in Niagara Falls.
Okay, so noted. Councillor Maves.
Yes, Your Worship. Check number 327636. That's my source of income.
Thank you. I'd like to declare conflict on check numbers 327596 and 327709 payable to myself. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, would you introduce the next item on the agenda, please?
Your Worship, a public meeting is now being convened to consider a proposed amendment to the city zoning bylaw to separate the Sterling Inn property, 5195 Magdalen Street, from the Greg Fruin Theatre property, 5781 Ellen Avenue. Notice was given by first-class mail in accordance with the Planning Act on Friday, March 20th, 2009, and by posting a sign on the property in question. Anyone who wants notice of the passage of the zoning bylaw amendment to participate in any site plan process, if applicable, or preserve their opportunity to appeal to the Ontario Municipal Board shall leave their name on the sign-in sheets outside the council chamber.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rapida. At this time, I'm going to ask the Director of Planning, Mr. Alex Hurlovich, to explain the purpose and the reason for the proposed bylaw amendment. Mr. Hurlovich.
Thank you, Your Worship. This property involves a parcel of land between McGrail Street and Ellen Avenue at the corner of Magdalen. The property is occupied by the Sterling Inn and the Greg Fruin Theatre. The City Council previously considered this application, this location. It's in the heart of our tourist commercial area, just one block off of Victoria Avenue. Council previously rezoned this property to allow for the hotel and the theater and rezone the property to operate as one parcel. The proponents now wish to operate the parcels as separate properties. So the site plan before you can see on the left, which we're calling Site 1, is the Sterling Inn, and the right-hand side of the property, Site 2, is the Greg Fruin Theatre. The applicants are proposing that these would be separated. There is sufficient parking on the Sterling Inn site to service that development. The parking would be reconfigured, as you see it before you, to serve the Greg Fruin Theatre. The property is, I've gone through that part. The property is designated tourist commercial in the official plan. It provides for hotels and entertainment uses. The zoning on the property is, as I've mentioned, site-specific. We've exempted the hotel from the parking requirements that would normally be associated for meeting rooms in hotels. There's a requirement specific to landscaping strip, and there's a maximum occupancy of the theater. In reviewing this particular application, we found, as I've mentioned, that there's sufficient parking to accommodate the Sterling Inn on that portion of the property. The parking on the theater site would accommodate 110 parking spaces. This is the equivalent of a 550-seat theater. The applicant is also seeking to recognize the specific landscape strips. At the time that the council previously dealt with this, they thought they could provide slightly wider landscape strips of 3.5 meters. They provided 2.8 meters and 2.1 meters respectively. They're looking to have those recognized. They also are seeking to have a waste disposal enclosure. It's located on the east side of the theater. It's been there since the time the theater opened. It hasn't had any issues. They also wish to reduce the number of loading bays from 3 down to 2. And again, this is an existing operational situation. There have been no site impacts. The hotel meeting rooms would continue to be exempt from the parking approvals. There's one site plan which governs the whole of this property. Again, this site plan would have to be amended to reflect the separation of the two operations into two parcels. and therefore that's a matter of course that we will go through with the applicant should this hotel or should this rezoning occur. But the revisions would also include certain site design aspects that have occurred on the site. There's an additional driveway on the north side of the hotel. There's some parking that's been provided on the north side of the theater, and there's some loading space next to the hotel, which is accessed off Ellen Avenue. It was original to the plan. It was to be removed, but it's being maintained. It, again, doesn't provide any issues. The reorientation of the parking from north-south configuration to an east-west would be something that would be addressed, as well as new access from Magdalen Street for the hotel. We did note that there's some parking encroaching for the days in to the east of this onto the subject property, onto the Greg Fruin Theatre property. The two lands are owned by the same person, and he will move those parking spaces in the future. Therefore, staff has found that this matter complies with the official plan. There's sufficient parking to support uses on both properties. There will be some minor alterations to the bylaw to reflect the site conditions, and the existing site plan will be revised. Therefore, staff is recommending that council approve the zoning amendment to place the Sterling Inn and the Greg Fruin Theatre under separate site-specific TC zones, and to facilitate the separation of the two developments. Those are the highlights.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hurlovich. And once again, members of the public are advised that failure to make an oral written submission at this public meeting will result in the Ontario Municipal Board dismissing any referral that it receives. Failure to sign the sign-in sheets will result in staff rejecting an appeal as per Section 34, subsection 19 of the Planning Act. At this time, council will hear from anyone other than the applicant who wishes to speak to the proposed bylaw amendment. Is there anyone other than the applicant who wishes to speak to the proposed bylaw amendment? For the third time, is there anyone other than the applicant who wishes to speak? Having seen none, now council will hear from the applicant or his representative. For the benefit of the record, would you be kind enough to identify yourself?
Michael Allen, architect, representing Mr. Ashak Moraney.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. The reasons for the application Mr. Hurlovich went through, so I won't get into a lot of details on that. Just in your consideration, the property in question was two separate properties prior to the time of the redevelopment of the site. In light of all of the previous rezonings, site plan agreements, and so forth, it's been amalgamated. So in simple terms, we're looking at to subdivide it for the operation of the two independent facilities. The one consideration I would ask council to look at this evening is in light of your parking demand study that is forthcoming, for the theater, if that parking study was implemented, we would be allowed to have one parking space for every 10 seats. That would allow this theater to go to a capacity of 1,100 seats. Currently, the theater operates at 700 seats for the liquor license. Under this bylaw amendment and your current standards, as Mr. Hurlovich stated, we would have to go down to a capacity of 500 seats. I'm requesting your consideration to leave it at 700 seats in this application so that we can move forward once this, with the parking study being implemented. We'd like your consideration to stay at 700 this evening.
Mr. Allen, perhaps we can ask Mr. Hurlovich to update council with respect to the presentation we just had in community services. So, Mr. Hurlovich, could you address that issue, given the fact that there was some direction from community services?
Thank you, Worship. Yes, it was for the benefit of everyone. The city engaged a consultant, ACOM, to undertake a parking demand analysis of the tourist core. The consultant found that a parking ratio of one parking space for every 10 seats would be appropriate. And that the rather than the one parking space per 5 seats, so it says Mr. Allen implies that there would be that it would be a benefit to the theater. The theater has been operating at capacity of 700 seats because they have shared the parking with the Sterling Inn, and so that provided them with sufficient parking capacity for the 700 seats. The maximum size of the theater had been previously specified. That could be retained.
And perhaps you might outline the process from this point on at the direction that council gave to staff.
Well, with respect to the parking demand analysis, I think council will hear a motion relative to that, but basically that the report by AECOM was received, and that we will be proceeding to talk to the stakeholders, either the business people affected by the parking demand analysis. That's basically our tourist core, and so we will be proceeding to contact the various BIAs and business operators.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hurlovich. Perhaps, Mr. Allen, you might stay tuned for that, and you could be engaged in those discussions as well when they take place.
Certainly would.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Allen by members of council? Okay, and having seen none, then the public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is now concluded. In the pleasure of council, Councillor Thompson.
Yes, I would move the severance being proposed, and certainly both the hotel and restaurant and Fruin Theater are existing, and the parking discussion we had downstairs tonight appears it would support additional seats in the facility, and I would move that we support the application with the seats being left at 700, which is according to the liquor license anyway.
Okay. Second by Councillor Diodati. You wish to make a comment?
And I would echo the comments. They've done an amazing job down there. No question about it. It looks great.
Good. Thank you very much. So we have a mover and a seconder, and motion is on the floor. Any further discussion? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, would you introduce the next item on the agenda, please?
A public meeting is now being convened to consider a proposed amendment to the city zoning bylaw to recognize an existing off-site parking and reduce the amount of parking required for a place of worship, the Chippewa Presbyterian Church at 5280 and 5318 Willoughby Drive. Notice was given by first-class mail in accordance with the Planning Act on Friday, March 20th, 2009, and by posting a sign on the property in question. Anyone who wants notice of the passage of the zoning bylaw amendment to participate in any site plan process, if applicable, or preserve their opportunity to appeal to the Ontario Municipal Board shall leave their name on the sign and sheets outside the council chamber.
Thank you very much, Mr. Earfeeder. And once again, I'm going to ask the Director of Planning to explain the purpose and the reason for the proposed bylaw amendment. Mr. Hurlovich.
Thank you, Worship. This property involves the Chippewa Presbyterian Church on the east side of Willoughby Drive, pictured before you. The property is at the corner of Aberdeen Street and Willoughby Drive, and also involves a parking lot at the corner of Welland Street and Willoughby Drive. The area is largely residential to the east, south, and west, and predominantly commercial to the north. The site plan before you shows the current configuration with the church building on the east side of Willoughby Drive. The proponents are seeking to make some minor additions to the church. This drawing is a little hard to read, but there's an area in gray just to the south of the side of the existing building, which is to be an expansion building just to the right side, and there's a small little infill at the top north building as well. Those will all be part and parcel of the additions that they wish to undertake. There's extensive landscaping on this property. There is a cemetery associated with the church as well. A portion of the parking is provided on-site, and a portion of the parking is provided off-site across the street. The applicant is seeking a zoning amendment to recognize the place of worship. The entire property would be zoned as an institutional zone. That is the church property. The parking area on the opposite side would be a parking zone. They are also, this would facilitate the construction of the 7,000 square feet to the building that I outlined. They're also seeking a reduction in the parking requirements to correspond with the seating capacity of the occupancy of the largest function area, and to tie in that off-site parking area. The lands are designated residential in the official plan. The official plan, however, does recognize that ancillary uses such as churches are allowed within the residential designation. They're to be conveniently located and situated on arterial or collector roads. Willoughby Drive satisfies that requirement. The church and related parking are contemplated by the official plan. The addition is modest in size, not expected to increase the traffic in any significant degree, and there is compatibility of the off-site parking that has been achieved over the years. We're recommending that there be some additional landscaping to that off-site parking lot to help buffer it from the adjacent properties. The property itself, where the church is located, is actually zoned in part residential single-family and two-family R2, and in part a institutional I zone. They're seeking permission to have all of the site zoned as an I, and that the recognize the function of these properties to operate as one. So both the R2 and the I portions would operate as one property. They also seek to recognize the existing exterior side yard setback from Willoughby Drive. There are two measurements, so 15.7 meter setback and 10.4 meter setback. They do not interfere with any possible widening of Willoughby Drive and therefore can be supported. The bylaw requires one parking space for every 5 seats for each of the functions within a church. So a church hall would have to have one parking space per 5 seats. The sanctuary would require one parking space per 5 seats. A school associated with the church would require one parking space per 5 seats. In the past, the City Council has considered other applications from other churches within the municipality to reduce that to the capacity of the largest seating. So typically we have found that not all of the function areas would be occupied at the same time. There wouldn't be something going on in the hall at the same time as the sanctuary, at the same time as the school. And so certainly there is an overlap of parking requirements. The off-site parking would be zoned as a P parking zone and tied to the church. So this would recognize officially what has been going on informally up until now. They provide approximately 18 spaces on that site. The application would, or the property would come under site plan control to ensure adequate parking or landscaping and buffering. We are recommending that there be a 6-foot high board fence around the 2 sides of the parking lot, as well as a 2-meter landscaping strip, or 6.5-foot landscaping strip abutting the residential properties. We have found then that the church and parking are, as contemplated, are permitted by the official plan. We will recognize the existing built form, and the reduction of parking would reflect the available parking or reflect the occupancy of the church to limit it to 240 people. It's greater than the sanctuary, less than the existing hall. The officials have been contacted, and they would be satisfied with the occupancy of the hall, which is the larger of the 2 facilities, being limited to 240 people. Therefore, we're recommending that the zoning bylaw amendment application be approved, recognizing the existing place of worship, permit the modest building additions, establish the parking requirements for the largest occupancy, which would be 240 persons, and to permit a portion of the parking to be located off-site on Willoughby Drive and Welland Street. Those are the highlights of the application.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hurlovich. And once again, members of the public are advised that failure to make an oral or written submission at this public meeting will result in the Ontario Municipal Board dismissing any referral that it receives. Failure to sign the sign-in sheets will result in staff rejecting an appeal as per Section 34, subsection 19 of the Planning Act. At this time, Council will hear from anyone other than the applicant who wishes to speak to the proposed bylaw amendment. Is there anyone other than the applicant who wishes to speak to the proposed bylaw amendment? Once again, for the third time, is there anyone other than the applicant who wishes to speak to the proposed bylaw amendment? And having seen none, now council will hear from the applicant or his representative. Good evening, sir. Could I have your name for the record, please, and address?
David Parker, architect. Your Honor, and members of council. The reason behind why this is coming to council is the church had decided they needed to upgrade their accessibility in the building. They wanted to add a handicap lift and an internal ramp from the rear parking lot, add some offices and a nursery for children, and increase the size of their lobby area. They're not increasing the size of the sanctuary, so the main auditorium will not change in terms of seating. When we went to the city to discuss this, we found out that the zoning wasn't as required. At one time, the church has been on the site since 1831, where the existing sanctuary is now used to be the location of the church manse, and that has since changed, obviously, but since that was residential, I guess that remained residential. And so in order to get approval, the planners felt that the residential portion of the property that was being used all as an institutional use should be combined, and the existing parking lot across the street, which has been used for parking, I believe the church has owned it since 1957. So we basically are asking that you allow the church to continue use as it has been going on since 1831.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parker. Thank you. Are there any questions by members of council, Mr. Parker? Having seen none, then, the meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is now concluded. The pleasure of council. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to see Reverend Schomburg here and Randy Clegg also from the church. It's very nice. And yes, there was an original church there dating way back. And now, because of the growth of the village, you see the new additions and the real growth because of the great leadership in the church. So I would like to make the recommendation, and the council approve the zoning bylaw amendment recognizing the existing place of worship on 8280 and 8318 Willoughby Drive, permit a modest addition to the building, establish parking requirements based on a maximum occupancy of 240 persons, and permit a portion of the required parking to be located off-site on the southwest corner of Willoughby Drive and Welland Street.
Thank you. I have a seconder, Councillor Thompson. Any other comments from members of council? We do have a motion on the floor. Having seen none, we'll call the vote then. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here tonight. Members of council, we have some individuals who wish to make comments this evening. We have some other items on the agenda, but I was wondering if we could move up item under bylaw, item number 2009-60. We have a bylaw to provide for the adoption of the amendment number 88 to the City of Niagara Falls official plan as approved by the OMB. And that's a request by Mr. Rick Brady of Urban Environment Management to speak. And also we have the presence of Mrs. Betty Trabuco, who has sent some correspondence, and I think the clerk wants to address that. So can I have a motion to have that matter brought forward? Councillor Diodati and Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? Motion is carried. So we'll deal with that one bylaw first if we could. Mr. Clerk, do you want to make comment with regard to correspondence? Do you have?
Well, just to put this in context, Mr. Brady wants to speak to the proposed bylaw, so that's what you're really moving forward, not the passage of the bylaw at this point in time, which once the issues surrounding the bylaw can be resolved, then we would deal with the bylaw during the normal process. Mrs. Trabuco sent in an email which council was provided for. I believe she wishes to speak. The only thing I would say is that you had a public meeting on this issue, which is the appropriate forum for her to speak to the matter. Also, she has the opportunity to obviously appeal once the bylaw is passed, and that's her recourse at this point in time.
Thank you. Mr. Hurlovich, you have some comments as well?
Thank you, Worship. Council might recall that this matter was dealt with a couple of weeks ago. And at that time, we had a resident from Martin Avenue come in and say that she did not wish to have her property designated industrial, that she wanted to have her property designated residential. The council then moved that we would designate all of the properties that were currently houses as residential. Mrs. Trabuco hadn't come because she has a property that's residential but was perfectly happy to have it industrial. And so she didn't have a chance to speak. She didn't come to the public meeting because that wasn't the direction that we were moving in. It was the direction that came afterwards. Staff, in following through on council's recommendation, advised all of the landowners, and Mrs. Trabuco was the only one who's indicated that she has a concern and therefore has submitted her interest in speaking.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. I appreciate that. So, members of council, I'm going to beg your indulgence to allow both Mr. Brady and Mrs. Trabuco to be heard this evening. I have a motion to that effect, please. Moved by Councillor Carrio, seconded by Councillor Maves. All those in favor? Motion's carried. So at this point, we'll ask Mr. Brady to come forward, please.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council, both allowing me to speak this evening and hopefully to listen to what I'm asking for. OPA 88, which will be before you in the bylaws this evening, it deals with the properties that were dealt with in the public meeting, as Mr. Hurlovich spoke to a few minutes ago. When I presented for my clients at that particular meeting, who were the owners of the majority of the property north of the CN tracks that were to be considered for the Outlet Mall site. One of the points that I raised at that time dealt with the cap that was to be placed on the amount of retail use. You may recall that there was some discussion on peer reviewing of the market studies, and you had decided that it wasn't necessary to have those peer reviews, and my client thanks you for that. But also during that discussion, I made the point that any control of the size of the outlet mall should be placed in the zoning bylaw as opposed to in the official plan. Now, planning staff and I, with my client, have gone back and forth, and for the most part, we're pleased with OPA 88 as it's now been written. A number of changes were made back and forth. However, one section is still there, which was the main section that we wanted to be changed. And basically, philosophically, there's a difference between planning staff and myself on this point. Planning staff would like the control of any expansion of the outlet mall to be within the official plan, and my client and myself have suggested that it should be within the zoning bylaw. What I'm going to suggest you to do this evening is when you are dealing with 2009-60, which is the OPA 88, I would ask that you carefully look at it and take consideration to 14.7.21. And 14.7.21 says, it's on the second page of the official plan amendment, near the top, and it says, limit the total retail gross floor area to 27,870 square meters within two phases. The first phase shall be limited to 18,580 square meters. An additional 9,290 square meters for retail may be permitted after 2013. I'm going to ask you simply to remove that phrase. Simply ask you to remove it completely in its entirety, and my client will be happy to have the same phrase placed within the zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw will be coming along in a matter of weeks, I believe, before you. And those are all my comments. Thank you very much for allowing me to have this opportunity to speak.
Okay. Are there questions by members of council with respect to the request that we have before us? Yes. Mr. Hurlovich, would you like to make comment with respect to that, please?
Your Worship, Mr. Brady recalls things slightly different than I do. What I recall is Mr. Brady actually said his client wanted to have 200,000 square feet of retail space in the first phase and up to 300,000 square feet in the second phase. That's exactly what we've given him in this policy. And we haven't put any limits on the shopping mall. In fact, it could be 2 million square feet. What we've limited is the retail component to exactly what he asked for, exactly what was advertised for the public meeting. He can put in restaurants to any amount of square footage that he sees fit. Any personal services, hairdressers, tanning salons, dog grooming businesses, all of those are unlimited. He can put in offices, totally unlimited. So again, we have not limited the shopping mall, but we've given him exactly what he's asked for, and it's entirely consistent with this council's approach. Niagara Square is limited to 500,000 square feet in the official plan for its retail component. Similarly, the River Realty's development at the Mount Carmel Center is limited in the official plan. This council just passed an amendment for smart centers at Oakwood and McLeod Road, again limiting that square footage in the official plan. So in fact, if we were to not limit this development, we're actually putting this one property owner in advance of all of our other properties, certainly those who have held their properties for much longer periods, who also have expansion potential and expansion plans. So I think for consistency and because it's what was advertised as a public meeting, that staff have prepared a document that actually reflects what this council approved.
Thank you very much. Any questions by members of council of their planner? So it's very clear. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Brady. Councillor Thompson?
That's through you to Mr. Hurlovich. What are we talking? If this is in the official plan, is it they're concerned about the official plan having that designation rather than the zoning bylaw? What would be the difference?
We would, Your Worship, we would include this this requirement in the zoning bylaw as well. The difference is that if the proponent wished to expand his retail operation, let's say he built 1 million square feet on the property, 300,000 square feet is retail, the other 700,000 square feet would be all of those other support services, restaurants, offices, etc. Should they want to go beyond the 300,000 square feet, they would have to apply for an official plan amendment and a zoning amendment. Without putting that in the official plan, they would then just apply for a zoning bylaw amendment. It just places them at what I believe is an unfair advantage over every other commercial sector in the city.
So what is a big disadvantage? They could apply for the official plan change and the zoning bylaw change at the same time. I understand the official plan takes a little longer, but if they wanted to amend that, that could be amended anyway.
The official plan takes almost the exact same amount of time now because we no longer have to go to the region for approval. So they would move hand in glove. But typically, if there was a body, and let's say one of the other commercial properties in town took exception to the Crosslinks development going beyond the 300,000 square feet expansion, if they were to appeal that to the Ontario Municipal Board, the Municipal Board would view the zoning amendment as complying with the official plan because there's no limit. On converse, should Niagara Square wish to expand its retail opportunities, Crosslinks could appeal that, and because there's an official plan amendment and a zoning amendment, it's a much more difficult situation, a much greater degree of proof is required, and so that's what I'm talking about in terms of unfair advantage for one proponent over another.
I see the unfair advantage aspect of it, but would this not also put a flag up for maybe some of the other developers saying, hey, this is an unfair advantage, I want to appeal this to the OMB?
I suppose they could.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Beeman, did you wish to make comment?
That was essentially my concern. Councillor Thompson's already articulated what I was going to raise, is that this, in my mind, is a red flag for an appeal.
Sure.
There's at least one developer I know in town who's a bit, shall I say, straining at the limits of what he currently has. I don't know if he's aware of this proposal or not, but certainly he's in a mood for appearances at the Ontario Municipal Board, and I don't know that it's necessarily in the best interest of all the parties to this particular amendment to bait the bull, as it were.
Okay. So, Council, you've heard both sides of the story. The pleasure of Council, we do have a bylaw that says what staff has articulated here. We've heard from legal counsel as well. So hopefully you have enough information to proceed on at this point, unless you have some alternate resolution to make. Having not seen then, we'll proceed on with the next issue with Mrs. Trabucco, and we'll deal with the bylaw when it comes forward in the agenda. Mrs. Trabucco, would you like to come forward, please? Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I will keep it brief. I was not at that public meeting several weeks ago due to illness. However, what I knew of the meeting was what was reported in the review. Okay. Notice of this meeting was received by us last Tuesday, our first knowledge of the proposed changes. Our property is presently rezoned light industrial, but is used as multi-unit residential and is considered legal non-conforming. We are opposed to having the zoning of our property changed from industrial to residential. We see that under this proposed amendment, industrial would be changed to Industrial Special Policy Area 7. We would ask that we remain in that category. We want to be part of the rejuvenation of the area of this city, not a hindrance. I would ask that you kindly consider our request.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Trabucco. Yes, Mr. Hurlovich, how can we assist Mrs. Trabucco? The grandfathering, would that normally prevail if we hadn't have introduced the other motion?
Yes, it would have. We would have to change the Schedule A that's attached to Amendment 88 to remove her property. I believe it's at the corner of Hickson and Ferguson, the southwest corner. It would be a little odd because it'll have residential on two sides of it, but that could be done. That's what she's seeking.
Okay. Councillor Thompson?
Yes, I recall this being discussed on several occasions, and it was, this is before the recent discussion even came up, where they wished to keep this property many years ago as industrial, and it doesn't surprise me that Mrs. Trabucco is here tonight trying to protect her rights, and I find it very difficult to think that somebody could come around and rezone my property against my wishes, and I certainly think that's unacceptable. So in light of the request and the email that we received from Mrs. Trabucco and family, I would move that they be considered light industrial. This is in a special category.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's appropriate. Councillor Mays, you wish to second that? Okay, any other comment by members of council? Having seen none, so we have a motion on the floor to maintain that property as light industrial as per the request of the owner. All those in favor? Motion's carried, so we can make that amendment on the schedule. Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Trabucco. We appreciate your presence this evening. Okay. Mr. Clerk, I guess we can go back to the normal agenda. Is that correct? We've got those changes noted?
I don't know if you want to give Mr. Brady some indication where you're going to go so he doesn't have to sit here. I mean, I'm not asking you to pass the bylaw, but I think he probably would like to go home and watch the hockey game if he can.
Rather than put up with us. Yes. Well, members of council, I didn't receive an indication from you with respect to any request to change the draft of the bylaw. Is that correct? Is that correct? Okay, so there's no, at this time, Mr. Clerk, there's no direction to change, so I hope that gets through to Mr. Brady and his proponent. Okay, and we'll deal with the bylaw when it comes forward. Okay, thank you very much for those issues. I have a few comments to make this evening, members of council. I'd like to begin with some highlights of some recent success events in our city. Recently, the third annual Passion Play performance took place at Club Italia on April 8th. Our community looks forward to this event annually, and once again, it did not disappoint. Under the guidance of Father Raymond Fennick Gonzi of St. Anne's Parish, children of the region came together to create a moving performance. It was a pleasure to be there, and I congratulate all those involved in making this such an overwhelming success. At the Chamber of Commerce luncheon recently on April 15th, we were pleased to welcome Mr. Michael Ignatieff, the Leader of the Opposition, the federal government, to our city. It was a pleasure to have him visit our city and to hear his address to many residents and business people. Our city welcomed hundreds of doctors this past weekend for the annual Docs on Ice hockey tournament. I was pleased to greet the teams of doctors on Friday night at their tournament banquet. I'd like to thank our doctor recruitment committee and the organizers of this event, mainly Heart Niagara and the volunteers who were involved. I'd like to also thank Dr. David Deck, Dr. Paul Cano, and Dr. Mike Conley for their commitment to making this event such a worthwhile endeavor each and every year. I was pleased to offer our congratulations recently at the 50th anniversary of the Stanford Kiwanis Club of Niagara Falls. It was a pleasure to be with the group to celebrate this milestone anniversary last Saturday night. I'd like to draw your attention to some important upcoming events. This week marks the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee's Green Week. Schools and businesses all over our community are pitching in to save energy today by turning off lights and computers, cleaning up litter on Wednesday, and will take part in planting and greening initiatives on Friday. I'd ask everybody to please join this Green Week. For this information, you can see the upload page in the Niagara Falls Review or the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee's website. I look forward as well to taking part in Arbor Days events this Friday in conjunction with the Park and the City Committee. We will be planting trees on Garner Trail, and I commend our Parks, Recreation, and Culture Division for their guidance and direction in this ongoing initiative. I'd like to as well acknowledge the fact that hundreds of trees are being planted in our city. I'd like to thank as well Councillor Peter Angelo and Councillor Wing for their leadership and exceptional commitment for the bettering the environment in our city. As well, next week we'll be organizing the major contributions of volunteers in our community, and I'm pleased to be offering our congratulations and thanks at a number of upcoming ceremonies, including the Coronation Center Volunteer Recognition, the Niagara Falls Museum's Appreciation Event, and Mountain Park Church's Barnabas Awards. There are countless organizations in our city that rely on the commitment of dedicated volunteers, and on behalf of the members of council, I extend our gratitude to all the residents who volunteer in our community, and thank you for being part of making Niagara Falls a better place. And as we have just heard recently, the citizens in Abruzzi, Italy are struggling to put their towns back together after a catastrophic earthquake that caused irreparable damage. I encourage citizens of Niagara Falls to support the efforts to raise funds for the Abruzzi disaster relief. An Abruzzi earthquake relief fundraising dinner will take place on Friday at Club Italia, April 24th, that is. I'd like to have everybody contact the Club Italia for more information, and stay tuned for the ongoing support efforts that will be taking place in our city. And it's a pleasure to invite members of council and city staff to our employee recognition evening to be held on Tuesday, April 28th. And please see the Human Resources Department to purchase your tickets for this exciting night where exceptional long-standing employees will be honored. This concludes my remarks for this evening. Oh, yes. Recently, as well, we did have notice received from the provincial and federal governments with regard to the stimulus fund. We have staff has been directed and staff is working diligently. We have received guidelines that the federal and provincial government are joining their efforts to provide infrastructure funding, that submissions are due on May 1st of this year, so that staff will have to work diligently. I'd like to have our acting CEO, Mr. Dulovic, speak to the initiative that is happening on behalf of staff as well.
Thank you, Your Worship. As Council knows, there was announcements in the various provincial and federal budgets regarding the infrastructure stimulus fund, and we were awaiting the rules, as they say, for the application. So we were informed on April 15th, Wednesday of last week, that the infrastructure stimulus fund, along with the Building Canada Fund Communities component, was now open. As a result, the Niagara Falls is able to apply for 3 projects under the stimulus fund and 1 under the Buildings Canada Fund. Just as of today, the guidelines, there have been some changes to the guidelines, so staff are busy going over them, and I'll just give you a little bit of background. They're providing about $4 billion in the infrastructure stimulus fund and another $500 million in the BCF, the Building Canada Fund. On the ISF, the program provides $2 billion for this fiscal year, being 2009, April 1st to March 31st of 2010, and then another $2 billion from 2010 to 2011. Projects have to be completed by March 31st of 2011. The big issue here, as I said, it's $4 billion, and what the federal government has said, they're trying to allocate it on a per capita basis. If we were to follow that, then under the stimulus fund, the city's per capita share from the federal government would be just over $5 million. That means there's a matching share coming from the province, which would be $5 million. And then we'd have to come up with our third, which would be over $5 million to apply if we were to go with the on a per capita basis. And in addition, under the Buildings Canada Fund, our share on a per capita basis, we would have to come up $625,000, and there would be another $625 from the feds and another $625 from the province. So if you're looking in totality, if the municipality were to take advantage of it and try to get it on a per capita basis, you'd be looking at $5.6 million. Another interesting twist is that something new that's just come out, 50% of the funding has to be spent by March 31st, 2010. And the reason there's such short timelines, and again, the May 1st application deadline is the federal government is trying to stimulate spending and stimulate the economy. So there's a quick turnaround on this. They want to get projects going this year. So that, they're talking about shovel ready. They're talking about rehabilitation as opposed to new. That's their preference, is rehab, because they think new projects may take some time and not reach those timelines of having money spent a year from now and 2 years from now. And they talk about incrementality. All eligible recipients will be required to attest in a conjunction with the project application the work to be undertaken is incremental construction activity that would not otherwise have been constructed by March 2011 were it not for funding from the infrastructure stimulus fund. So I think what they're looking for is new money being brought forward by the municipalities to partner with the federal and provincial governments to stimulate the economy. So as I said, if we look at it on a proportional basis, you're looking at about $5.6 million that the municipality would have to try to come up with if we wanted to go by a per capita basis. I think Council got a number of projects that they're talking about, various infrastructure projects, transit, water, wastewater, road, are some of the things that the municipality would qualify for. Municipal buildings, parks, and trails. We'll be talking about this further at the special budget meeting on April 27th. I draw Council's attention to tab 8 of the capital budget. Those areas are, as we talked about previously, are items that there is no funding in place from the municipality. Other things to look at are potentially projects from the future. We're going to try to get some clarification if projects from 2010 could be brought forward, or they have to go beyond that if we have to start looking to 2011. So we're going to get some clarification on that this week. But I think what the important thing is we can apply for 3 infrastructure stimulus fund applications and 1 Building Canada Fund application. That's 4 in total. And we'll be looking for direction. We'll ask Council to have a look at some of the projects that are there. Staff will be putting something together. Hopefully we'll have something to you before the April 27th meeting, but we will be talking about which ones are we going to apply for, and staff will have to quickly turn around. I know for the ISF funding, they're just talking about a 1-page application. That's good, and I think with the BCF, it was a multi-page application that we had to go through before, where they were talking about business case and such. So there's quite a bit more work involved with that.
Good, thank you, Mr. Julovic. Councillor Carrier.
Thank you, Worship. Just a question. A project that we've already committed to, like, say, for example, the Boys and Girls Club, where we've committed to donate money to their construction of a new building. Could we use this to maybe offset the city's contribution?
Yes, we could, because that's a tab 8 project. But the interesting thing is it has to be completed by March of 2011.
The project or the portion that...
No, the construction, the actual construction. That again, it's to stimulate the economy. So again, we have to, one of the things you have to do by March 31st of 2011, you have to sign off to say it's being used what it was intended to be used for. So it's not money that you could, thank you very much, and we bank it. It has to be spent, all of it, by March 31st, 2011. And
we can spend it, we can just give it to them.
No, they want the building up and being used for its intended purpose. Because one of the things that staff was looking at and we're questioning was the overpass on Morrison Street. But again, we don't think we can have it built by March of 2011 because we have to do the design. We have to then go through CN, and CN is notorious when you're trying to get approvals through them. So staff are a little bit concerned about that. So we started looking at projects that we think we can have finished by March 2011. Then the other issue is you got to have 50% of your money spent by March of next year. So that limits the type of projects that you're going to do in the first year, and then what are you going to do in the second year? Maybe some of the projects that need a little bit of lead time. So it's very tight on the timelines and trying to get your dollars spent.
Councillor Peter Angelo.
Thanks, Your Worship, and again to yourself, to Mr. Dillowitz, it's great news. We're looking at $5.6 million from the federal government, plus matching funds from the province, plus matching funds from us. So we're looking at 4 projects that are in total going to amount around $17 million. Is that correct?
Mr. Dillowitz?
Through your worship, yes, that is.
Okay.
And technically, we have to have an affidavit signed by the CAO attesting to the fact that these projects were legitimate projects that were not being contemplated, but we're waiting to call.
He's new.
Pardon?
He's new. He won't know what.
That's right. Also, the fact that it has to be, the work has to be done. I qualified that in Ottawa. Has to be done by March, or you don't get the money. They just stop funding the project. Mr. Dillowitz, perhaps you might elaborate on projects such as the Whiteman Bridge. We're going to be checking that to see that was on our agenda.
Yeah, through your worship. Once again, it's one of these projects that we have slated for 2010, and that's something that we need to check on, because it does talk about advancing projects, but the big issue is you've got to attest to the fact that if it weren't for the federal funding, the project wouldn't go ahead. Right now, we have it in our capital program as being debt financed. So these are some of the things that we need to check on and what the rules are, but I think what's very clear from the program is they're looking for additional spending coming from the area municipalities in order to stimulate the economy. That's very clear in all the literature that I've read leading up to this announcement and what's in this announcement, what came from AMO and such, that they're looking for new dollars here because the federal government and the provincial governments are going into debt and generating new dollars to stimulate the economy, and that's what they're looking for from the municipality as a partner in this program.
Okay. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you. The Whiteman Bridge, that was scheduled for this coming year through Jeff Holman. But because the bridge on Lions Creek is going to be totally down from the end of April to September,
Right.
Jeff felt that we could not entertain 2 bridges under construction. So that's the reason for only remedial work being done now.
Sure.
So I wonder if they could understand that.
Well, they may understand it very well because we couldn't have 2 bridges
We
closed.
certainly can't.
Dean's Bridge will be rebuilt as we speak. There's been notice in the paper given by the region, and they're undertaking that project as we speak.
This is already a concern on how to move in and out of the village because Lions Creek you can't come through, Stanley Avenue you can't come through, so it's not an easy one. And the Parks Commission in the summer, Marineland Parkway is not easy in the summer, so it's not an easy exercise for the people in the village coming up at the short of this month. So maybe we can work with the government and tell them why we can't do the Whiteman Bridge this year.
Sure. I think staff is well aware of that, so appreciate your comments, Councillor Fisher. Great. So we'll move on, and thank you again for your attention. Under communications and comments from the City Clerk, the first item on the agenda is Child Find Ontario. Requests that the month of March be proclaimed as Missing Children's Month. May 25th be declared as National Missing Children's Day in the City of Niagara Falls. Moved by Councillor Carrio, seconded by Councillor Peter Angelo. Any further comments? Questions? Okay. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, are there any additional items for Council's consideration?
No, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. And to move on to reports, under Finance Reports, we have Report F2009-22, the use of excess funds for downtown revitalization. We do have Mr. Mordecai Grun here representing the downtown BIA. Mr. Grun is wishing to make comment, members of Council. I know we do have a 10-minute limit to his discussion, but are there any comments that you wish to hear? Okay, all right. Okay, fine. So at this point, unless there's any qualification, Mr. Grun, I guess there's no reason at this point to. Do you want to make a motion? Okay. All right, good. So Councillor Diodati, moved by Councillor, second by Councillor Thompson. Is there a presentation that you have, Mr. Grun?
Yes.
Okay, all right, fine. I didn't understand that. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So please adhere to the 10 minutes if you would, please.
Yes, but it's going to be very fast. Thank you very much, Your Honor and members of Council. We're just going to speak a little bit to the downtown Niagara Falls street beautification project that was brought forward to members of Council to make sure that everybody that's present understands the thought process that went into the project and what the thinking is, what issues they were put in to address, and as follows. Here you can see a little bit of the challenge that anybody that would like to revitalize our downtown is going to encounter. And while our downtown has fabulous, fantastic historic buildings, and our revitalization is really a major, major success and something we can be proud of. The challenge is that Queen Street is a very, very long street that has a very, very small opening to River Road and a very, very small opening to Victoria. And so when traffic, we can even be in the summer and we can have 19 art galleries open and theater and everything else, but traffic driving by River Road and Victoria doesn't realize that there's really anything there. And so we just get missed completely. And so it's really, really important that we have a very, very powerful symbol at the entrance and gateways to the downtown that say, hey, you've arrived to the heart of our community. You've arrived to where our city council sits in meetings. You've arrived to where the locals go, where the locals hang out, and to a special place. A lot of little things make a huge difference. And the picture on the right shows our existing trash cans, and the pictures on the left are some of the ideas of the different trash cans that are being brought in as proposed under this budget. Things like benches make a huge difference if they're picturesque, if they're pretty and they're nice. And if we want to make Queen Street, which is a very long street, a walkable street, a pedestrian-friendly street, a place where people just want to spend a little bit of romantic time with their spouse or quality family time, these things are very, very important. Very, very important is one of the components in the beautification was widening Queen Street directly across City Hall. And the reasoning is one of the challenges that Queen Street has is that it's way too narrow. And the key, and this has been proven in many, many locations, I'm sure members of council have been to Europe and have been everywhere, the key to really a great, great downtown is sidewalk cafes and people being on the street. And so it's important that where we can, those streets are widened. This proposed budget only has it in one location, but let's start with the street right across the street from City Hall, and then let's work with our temporary decks and things like that to try to solve it in other streets. Go ahead. Signs. Signs say a lot about a place, and as you can see, it would make a world of a difference whether our signs are the way it is right now, or whether our signs are similar to the signs that you see on the street. And included in that budget was the application of more beautiful signs. Art. Street art is very, very important. It really gives a place a real ambiance. And again, it says a lot about the people who live there. It says a lot about the community. And in this budget was an amount of money for art and street art. Not a lot, but with our artists and things, we can really come up with some quality things similar to what you see over there that would really be beautiful and make a big difference. Statues. And again, I think the photos speak for themselves. But when it's not for nothing that quality cities have statues in the right places. And again, they send a very, very powerful message. They draw people out in the open. It's the type of place you want to walk your dog. It's the type of place you want to hang out. And these are the type of things that downtowns really, really should have. This is a sketch of a proposed statue that would be at the gateway of the downtown. This idea actually came from one of the members of council. Can I give the member of council who came up with the idea credit? Anyway, and basically it's a statue that made of the mist, with mist flying out of her hair. People can walk underneath it. And a statue like this would really give a tremendous sense of place and a tremendous sense of presence to the gateway of the downtown. It would be a big message saying you've arrived in a special place. In council, in passing their budget, they're not committing themselves to this statue. This was just a concept, but something needs to be done at our gateway. One of the questions I was going to ask Mr. Dulovic is whether a shovel-ready project would be considered the turnaround at the entrance to the downtown, or some of the other things that studies were already done for. But something needs to be done at that gateway to really make it special. And we're trying to do things with a very limited amount of money and a limited amount of resources, so the little that we do has to be special. Landscaping, and again, I think it really speaks for itself, but it makes a very big difference whether the bottom of a tree is surrounded with flowers or whether it's surrounded with dirt and cigarette butts, flower pots, and we need to, sitting over here in our audience is Sibylla, who's opening up the buttery. Well, she moved from Niagara on the Lake, and she'll speak for herself. But basically, we need to have a beautiful street in order for people to come to the type of attractions that we're bringing and to match them with the attractions that we're bringing. Right. This is the parquet. This is our existing parquet. And not that much money is budgeted to do something with it, but a little bit will go a long way. Again, these are psychological, subconscious reminders that say you've arrived in a special place. They're not that expensive. And they're in our budget, and they're sort of downtown archway, saying, okay, you know what, you've arrived, here's an archway, this is where you are. Included in the budget was a sound system for the downtown, because the downtown is doing a tremendous amount of festivals this coming year, and the downtown is especially the place where people want to go to in the holiday season. Everybody, when you think of Christmas and you think of that time of the year, you think about a beautiful downtown, and you need the music. And having a sound system for the downtown, for events, for music, so people can stroll around, so when people are skating or people are doing their thing, is really important. And included in the budget that was presented to council was a sound system that would cover the entire downtown. And all I just want to say very quickly is the time is now, because God's blessed us, and we really have amazing, unique assets coming to the downtown, from the Buttery to the Butterfly Gallery to the brewery to a wedding museum to Ed Spira to John Newby to a chocolate shop to we have opening up now a very unique Parisian restaurant that specializes in crepes. They have 3 locations in Paris, and it doesn't make sense to beautify the downtown when the private sector is not making an investment. It doesn't make sense to beautify them after, God forbid, they failed because we didn't beautify it. The time to match what we're doing is now, because we're blessed and we have these magnificent cultural attractions, and let's be proud of our downtown and be proud of what we have, and let's send that message by making it a special place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grund. Are there any questions by members of council? Mr. Grund? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation this evening. Members of council, we have a recommendation contained in the report F2009-22 in the pleasure of council. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, as council is aware, we have a steering committee that was set up to try to meet as regularly as possible with the downtown, and to attempt to try to expedite some of the projects that the downtown has been working on over the past while. And I think anybody would agree that there has been a substantial amount of success as you drive up and down the street, and even with the number of cars that you see there now, and sometimes the difficulty of getting a parking spot on the main street. The discussion we had about a month ago with respect to dollars that had been allocated for the downtown were referred to back to staff, and it is back on the agenda tonight to determine what we will be utilizing the additional funds. I think $350,000, which does not include $100,000 that was approved previously to match $100,000 with the region to do beautification and upgrading on city property in the downtown. I might add, in the committee meeting just prior to this meeting, there was a request to expedite as quickly as possible how we could permit the downtown to have flower boxes and to get over the difficulty of encroachments and difficulties, and the staff were directed to work on that as quickly as possible, and to try to determine how we could move quickly with the approval of awnings on some of the properties down there. So you have seen just some of the things that the downtown would like to do with the balance of the $350,000, which was allocated and set aside for the downtown. In fact, I made the motion before that we approve that. The council wanted more information. I think Mr. Grund has provided that. And as a result, I would move the motion that we approve the additional funds that were allocated previously for the downtown to be utilized for that purpose.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think that's very appropriate. Mr. Harrison, you wish to make comment in that regard?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to correct, I just want to be clear that the balance of funds that are available is, excuse me, the balance that's unfunded or that we haven't used out of the debenture of $438, less the $100,000 that was previously allocated. And there's one other project, the parking study, which was included for the downtown, which is something that has not been completed yet, but will be coming out of that. So there is approximately $318,000 or $320,000 available, and so that's the monies that are currently available for use.
Okay, Councillor Diodati.
That's the amount that I wanted in the motion.
Councillor Diodati.
Yes, Your Worship, I wasn't aware the parking study comes out of this fund. Is that how we had designated that?
Yes. Okay. It was part of the original study work that was being done, of the 1.2. We've actually debentured this money, and the money has been secured and it's been sitting in the account. And Mr. Grund is most anxious, and so is the downtown VIA, to see this money go to where it was originally intended. So that was the issue that we're now dealing with. Councillor Iononi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the options is that we can use the funds, the remaining funds as payment against debenture issue for the balance of payment period. I'd rather see us utilize that money and pay down our debt. So if we're not utilizing this 318 to pay down this debt, how are we paying it down? Through tax money? So the taxpayers are paying this back. I'm going to vote against the motion, Mr. Mayor. I think there's better use for that money.
Okay. Thank you. Alrighty, members of council. Yes, Councillor Peter Angelo.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, the recommendation on the floor is to use the remaining balance of the funds.
Yes.
Does it specify where?
No, at this point it doesn't. So I have a question that you may want to address. We have Mr. Dielbeck has advised that there are some issues with regard to sight lines, that there's money can be spent on the entranceway. As you know, the road can be cut down so you can see. You'll be able to see River Road. From River Road, you'll be able to see downtown. At this point, there's a crown. You can't see that. So we had some discussions. Mr. Dielbeck, you want to elaborate on what that cost might be?
Yeah, through your worship, in speaking with Mr. Holman and his staff, that's to cut down the crown from the old rail crossing and basically to do the block between Erie and Zimmerman. What we're talking about is just surface works, very little underground, but I think some underground would be with the street lighting. They're talking $220,000 to $250,000 to do that block, to realign the curbing, to redo the sidewalks and such, and cut that hump down.
Yeah. And perhaps that might be a project that they'd look at. Mr. Clerk, do you have a comment?
Yeah, just to that question, to Councillor Peter Angelo's question, you'll recall that there was almost a menu of different items when the report first came. Now that if the motion goes through, you've got a quantum that's been determined as far as how much money is available to the downtown. They would put forward some recommendations as how they would like to see it spent, and it would come back to council for formal approval. And
perhaps that would be the next point of order, that we could direct the BIA to come back to us with the amount of money that's been defined and give us some indication what their priorities would be. Mr. Grund, would that meet with your approval?
Yeah, yes, it would. We've already done that. So
it was just very broad in its scope, but maybe you can be very focused, and you can come back to us. So if that can be incorporated in the motion, if you like, Councillor Thompson. Okay, so that they give us some direction focused on what they'd like to see the money spent on. We brought it for that purpose. Councillor Peter Angelo, do you have any further comment?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay, so hopefully that will be included. So Councillor Diodati, you agree to that?
Yeah, I just want to confirm. So we're committing to the project. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, we actually borrowed funds, debentured those funds. There's
Right.
about $320,000 left. And we do have a wish list from the downtown BIA, and they're going to focus on their priorities, and we can get that a little more focused in terms of a budget.
But what I'm saying is, right now at this moment, we're committing to this project financially.
If you vote in favor, yes. Well, we already borrowed the money for that purpose, right?
No, I just want to make sure. So we're committing to this $318,000. It's not coming back for approval. It's being approved
right now. That's what the motion is. Yes, Mr. Clerk.
Yeah, you're committing to beautification, the general term of beautification. What will come back is how that will be broken down for the different projects, whether it's the benches, whether it's cutting down the crown, as Mr. Dulovic referred to. But you're committing, basically now it would be, I guess, $318,000 plus the original 100 plus the 100 you got from the region.
Okay. Councillor Carrio?
Just so there's no confusion. There's no new money. This is money we committed in
Money
the
that's been
past.
sitting, that's right. We borrowed this money and...
We committed in the past.
That's right. Well, we borrowed the money, we found the money to venture that money. So, Mr. Grund.
If members of council can kindly include in the motion that the money be allocated as per the BIA direction within their beautification.
That's what we've asked you to do.
So that the decision on sort of how that beautification goes sort of be directed through the BIA.
Mr. Clerk?
Well, you can't do that. I mean,
It's
got to come back to council.
Right, it'll come back to council. I'm saying
now,
the
I don't see
recommendation...
council necessarily disagreeing with it, but council has to.
But the recommendation that comes back to council will be the recommendation that council has asked the BIA to come back to council.
We've asked you to come back with a more definite list and working in that $320,000. That's what the motion says at this point.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So, members of council, any further comments? Having seen none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Councillors, any opposed? 1. Okay, the motion's carried. Thank you very much. We have a further item on the agenda, the ratification of the Community Services Committee action. Call on the chair, Councillor Iannone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The following items are to be ratified from April 20th, 2009 meeting of Community Services. The minutes of April 6, 2009 be adopted as reported. Under reports, the People Mover Project Update Report, that the city indicates to the federal government that the municipality is working diligently and is committed to the People Mover system, and that the federal government be requested to work with the municipality and extend the due deadline of the People Mover Project funding. Under the tourist area parking demand study, that the tourist area park demand study be received, and staff proceed with meetings of the appropriate stakeholders and report back to council. Matters arising of PD 2009-25, matters arising from Municipal Heritage Committee regarding the Oswald House fence at 2922 St. Paul Avenue. Under PD 2009-32, that municipal staff review regarding the Oswald House fence at the same address. That staff work with property owners to develop a compromise with city paying for the stonework and the property owners paying for the ironwork, and the staff report back to council. Under PD 2009-27, matters arising from Municipal Heritage Committee status of the Jolly Cut, that council consider the designation of the Jolly Cut as a cultural heritage landscape following the design and reconstruction of the pathway, and that council forwards the following Municipal Heritage Committee comments to the architect responsible for preparing a landscape plan for the Jolly Cut. That the walkway follows existing path and remain true to the contour of the moraine, and the walkway width be maintained with its current width, that native species should be used, a tree protection plan should be completed, and that the Municipal Heritage Committee be consulted in the design stage, and that is our report. I so move.
Moved by Councillor Iannone, seconded by Councillor Carrio. Any further questions or comments by members of council? Councillor Fisher.
I just have a quick question. And we did approve the Jolly Cut in the Heritage Committee. How many did we ask to sit on the committee? All of the Heritage Committee? 1, 2, 3? How many?
Mr. Dulovic?
No committee.
There's no committee. There's a member of citizens.
Yeah, through your worship. I think the plan was that when the designs are done, we would forward them on to the Municipal Heritage Committee for comment.
So we don't know how many of the Heritage Committee will sit on that.
Well,
no, I think what the staff was going to do is once there was, taking into account their comments, forwarding it on to the committee as a whole, the designs, and asking for input back.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Good. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. We have ratification of in-camera recommendations presented by the clerk. Mr. Clerk.
One item, Your Worship, that the RFP process initiated by the request for proposals known as RFP number 1 for the People Mover system be terminated, and staff notify the proponents.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Iannone, seconded by Councillor Carrio. Any discussion? Sorry, Mr. Beeman?
I believe there's another item. I think Mr. said there's the other item on the Lipinski matter.
Direction to staff.
Direction? Okay. Alrighty, we have a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Carey, yes, okay. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you very much.
Can I speak to that?
Certainly.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, we went through that whole presentation downstairs, and I was the sole person to hold out voting to send that recommendation back. And it was for the purpose of the fact that quite some time ago, I raised the issue in regards to a proponent had come, spoke to our former CEO, Mr. McDonald, in regards to an alternate type of people mover system. At that time, we were told that we were tied to the proponents and that legally we weren't sure if we could go ahead. We now have a legal opinion stating that we can look at other options. And quite frankly, I think that we kind of tied ourselves into a corner downstairs, because I did hear Mr. McDonald say that the preferred option would be the type of monorail.
No, he didn't say monorail.
No, he didn't. He said rail type of project. I'm using that as what was our initial. The proposal that Mr. McDonald entertained in his office from a very well-known company, we all got an email today by the company in regards to their proposal that had come to our former CAO. And I think it's a proposal that all of council needs to take a look at. When I hear that the proposed option is not the one that we entertained downstairs, not everybody has seen the same presentation that I saw. I know Councillor Thompson has seen it also. And quite frankly, I think it opens the door to be the best of both worlds. And I think what's even more important now is, when I saw this presentation, the company that spoke to me wanted to build the manufacturing company of this project here in Niagara Falls and create Niagara Falls jobs. I don't see that in a bus transportation system. And I think this is kind of a happy medium. We can't discard it because all of council hasn't seen it. So I'd like to make a motion that we invite the proponent who came from overseas and is willing to come again and speak to this council in regards to this option. I'd like to make a motion that all of council see the same proposal that Councillor Thompson and I have seen, and maybe we can take a look at a different direction now that we legally can.
Well, before are you seconding the motion, Councillor? Okay, we have an opinion. The solicitor wants to make a comment.
We are not in a legal position to do what Councillor Iannone is describing.
We just
puts me in a difficult position in that the opinion that was presented downstairs, which was meant to be kept in camera, specifically ties the opinion to a change in the nature of the project. There is a fundamental change in the nature of the project. That is what the opinion is relying upon to indicate that council is acting in good faith. And that is why there's an opinion that says we're relieved of our obligations under the RFP process. If council entertains media that are similar to, in nature, to the ones that were put forward by the original proponents, they cannot shelter under that opinion. They will have to get a new one to comment on the particular facts that are being presented. That legal opinion, that's why Mr. Lustig spent so much time going over those specific assumptions on which that opinion was based. If those facts are not true, the opinion cannot be relied upon.
Thank you, Mr. Beeman. I appreciate your comment. Well,
speaking to my opinion.
yeah, you can find address it.
Then we've really tied ourselves into a corner that we can't get out of downstairs. So we absolutely, while they say we'll go phase 1 with a rubber tire, phase 2 looking at a rail type system, that's what I heard him say downstairs. So if we've cut our 3 proponents loose now, and we're looking at phase 1 and you've said we'll go ahead with phase 1, is it just, when we look at phase 2, which is a rail system, aren't we then treading on the same dangers that he just explained there?
You know, perhaps we can qualify that because a new RFP would be issued at that time, and that proponent you're talking about would have an opportunity to submit.
But if I'm not mistaken, Councillor Thompson, I think his motion was to do the 2 concurrently, if I'm not mistaken. That was the motion that was passed downstairs. He talked about looking at 1 and 2 at the same time. So we're kind of sucking and blowing here because we've cut them loose, but we can't look at something that addresses everybody's wants.
No, we actually would have to issue another RFP for the second phase, and the proponent you're talking about, along with anybody else, including the existing proponents or the former proponents, could submit So that's the point that they're making. So at this time, what the city solicitor is suggesting to us, we don't commit to another sole purpose facility or sole purpose mode or technology. It would be open. At the time that you talk to these people you're talking about, the 3 proponents had been selected, and now we're changing the direction from where we were going initially, and we're going to talk about setting up a phase 1 and phase 2. The phase 2 then may involve bringing more people to submit their technology as well, depending upon what the RFP requires at the time. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, I didn't expect to get into this tonight, but you have the correspondence that was sent to you today, and I attempted to get legal clarification in the committee meeting with respect to this matter, and I was told go to Toronto to the original solicitors who would give you an opinion. So now I'm getting the opinion that I wanted downstairs previously with respect, because this is exactly what I was attempting to find out. I expect as a result of this correspondence, which is addressed to you, that there'll be a response, and hopefully the rest of the council has the opportunity to examine this, and I think maybe not now, but sometime in the near future, just out of curiosity and for information. And I did suggest that we go ahead with, and I think it's prudent to do that to the federal government, to say, can we do this, or do we have to do this? Or can we do both of them at the same time? What we're talking about here is a public-private partnership, and I think that that's the missing link in this whole discussion and scenario. So I'm not going to say anything more about this because of the legal ramifications, but I'd certainly like the rest of the council to know about this, and hopefully at the next meeting you can make some kind of a response. It does suggest, and I know how much Mr. McDonald likes to travel, that there's an opportunity for him to go over and visit England into Heathrow Airport to have a look at this equipment. Maybe you can take advantage of that.
Mr. Beeman?
In light of these developments, I would suggest then that the motion to turn the current RFP proponents loose be deferred until such time as a further clarification of the opinion of Weir Folds is obtained, which specifically deals with 2 issues that are being raised here. One is the potential for entering into a further public-private partnership, and the other one is this phase 2. There certainly doesn't seem, when I read that opinion, I don't see his concept, the approach of the author of that opinion is that the rubber tire is the end of the end use of the project. He does not seem to be contemplating any phase 2, and I think that should be clarified with the provider of the opinion before council relies upon it.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Beeman. Councillor Ioannoni.
Well, Mr. Mayor, that flies in the face of the presentation we were given downstairs then. If you give a presentation to council and you say, we're going to look at phase 1, phase 2, and our lawyer just told us that the Weir Folds opinion doesn't give us an opportunity to go to phase 2, then Mr. McDonald's whole report to us isn't totally moot. Because he talked about a phased approach. If we can't do a phased approach, don't hand us a report downstairs that says we can. He just contradicted our own consultant's report downstairs.
Mr. Beeman.
And I'll say something else. By the mere fact of Mr. McDonald entertaining this group who came from England, and he didn't say to them, no, I can't speak to you because we have 3 other proponents. He listened to the whole proposal and then said to them, but we have 3 other proponents, so I really shouldn't have listened to you. Merely by entertaining them, he gives them a false outlook that maybe we can entertain them. So I think we're mirrored in a whole lot of confusion here, because what I heard downstairs is council accepted a phased approach. And Mr. Beeman is telling us now that Weir Folds' opinion doesn't give us an opportunity to do that. So maybe we're voting on things we don't even understand.
Well, Mr. Beeman, would you address that, please?
Yes, I think what I'm saying is this, that there is an effort here to start moving into consideration of approaches to the matter other than what was specifically contemplated in that opinion. That is a rubber tire solution. Now, I'm told by Mr. Felicetti that the author of that thing did know about the second phase. I don't see any of it in his opinion. If these questions are raised before we get to this stage, then we get a chance to talk to the fellow and get these sort of things cleared away. But at the moment, I'm looking at an opinion that's tied to the rubber-tired solution. It doesn't go beyond that. Is it his view that once that's done, then that's the end of the process? It may well be. But unfortunately, he's not here to confirm or deny that. I'm not able to do it for him because I don't know what the facts are on which you base the opinion other than what I read in the opinion. The opinion talks about the rubber-tired solution. I would urge caution to start on other approaches unless that issue is tied down. And it's unfortunate that I believe his name is McClellan was double booked tonight, because otherwise we would be able to resolve this right now. But all I can do as your legal advisor present is recommend that we hold off until we get this resolved.
Why didn't you bring this up?
Counselor Thompson?
Because...
Wait, sorry, let me just let him finish.
Why I didn't raise this downstairs?
No, not you.
No.
No. Mr. Beeman, please. Well, he wants to respond.
Well, as far as downstairs is concerned, this was... I'm not in a position to comment on Mr. Lustig's advice. As far as Mr. Lustig was the person presenting that opinion. This issue of the second phase and the rubber tire was clear in his mind. In my mind, that's an issue that I would have liked resolved if I knew about the second phase. And simply, probably just one more line in the thing would just say, well, we'll have a second RFP for the second phase, and that'll cause a break in continuity of the negotiations, and everything's fine. But that's what, and the other key thing is if the second phase does not involve a public-private partnership, then that would be a material different thing as well. And it would clearly be a different project than the one that was tendered, and there'd be no problem. Those are the kind of things, the kind of facts that need to be known to the author of the opinion in order for it to be definitive.
Councillor Thompson.
Well, you know, if I had the opportunity to have a legal opinion in the committee room, I think we could have resolved a lot of this. This is a rubber tire system. This is also an opportunity, in my opinion, but I'm not interested in getting the municipality in a legal hassle with respect to this. So I think we should not have any further discussion and have the opportunity for staff to report to us at the next meeting in committee if that's necessary. From Weir Folds, you're talking about the project. The first one was a fixed rail. This is not. We're not on a fixed rail first phase as we speak. The Parks Commission is not participating. It is not a loop system. There are so many changes, and those are the questions I wanted to ask, but I'll wait and hear from the solicitor at our next meeting.
Thank you, Councillor. I appreciate your comment. Members of Council, I suggest that my understanding was the next phase, phase 2, if we got to that point, we would be able to open up the process if there were other proponents who were interested in meeting the requirements of phase 2 as defined by this council, which have not been done yet. Then I would suggest that would be an opportunity for others to come forward. That was my understanding, and I believe that's the case. So, Mr. Felicetti, do you want to just try to qualify that for the members of council?
That's through you, Your Worship. That's correct. That's staff's understanding as well at this point in time in terms of the project and the direction we're getting from our solicitors. Is that it's a separate entity. It's a rubber tire. Originally it was a fixed rail, full loop system. The project and scope has changed, and that was the opinion. Is basically to proceed as we described downstairs.
So perhaps I may ask you the question: if there were, if the council redefines the RFP for that second phase, then possibly that would open the door for opportunities for other people. Is that fair to say, Mr. Beaman?
Yes, that's right. What we can't do is what's being proposed here.
That's right.
That
I
is,
understand.
send these guys on their way, say we're going rubber tire, and then bring somebody in to try to do essentially what was going to be done in the RFP.
So it's premature to do that?
That can't happen until after we have demonstrated in good faith that we are proceeding with a rubber tire system as proposed in Phase 1. That phase of the development has to be demonstrated to be something we're genuinely doing, because that's our demonstration of good faith that we're doing something different than the original proposal.
Sure. That was the understanding I had. Councillor Maves and Councillor.
Yes, Your Worship. I'm just concerned about the time constraints here. This has to be done by sometime in June, I believe. And
well,
I think
phase 1, actually, Phase 1 could be done by June, but this isn't to deal with that at this point, right?
Yeah, I realize that, but I'm just curious. I think, was that not presented in Niagara Tourism sometime last winter?
Yeah,
I think. Couldn't we have given that to Mr. McDonald at that time? Or?
Well, Mr. McDonald was aware of it, but the point is we had 3 proponents selected. The technology had never been defined, but the 3 proponents had been. So if those proponents had wished to engage the company that Councillor Ioannoni is discussing, they could have done so, and I think that was the comment that he made at the time to me. That would be inappropriate. So we had already set up an RFP. We had qualified those people for an RFP. If they wish to engage technology, possibly Mr. Felicetti, you want to confirm that, please, as well?
Through you, Your Worship, I think at the time that Mr. McDonald did meet with the group, he did advise them to go speak to the 3 proponents.
Right.
As you pointed out, the technology wasn't identified at that time, so they were invited to speak to the proponents. If they did, I'm not sure.
Yeah. And I think we just have to qualify one issue after another, Councillor Maves, so I think that's what we're trying to do.
We are eliminating the 3 proponents now, and
we're cutting them loose. We're not eliminating them. We're just
Okay.
cutting them loose. Okay. Yes, Councillor Ioannoni.
Mr. Mayor, on page 7 of Mr. McDonald's report to us downstairs, it talked, and our solicitor was down there. He talked about future phases, and in his own report it says a fixed rail system. So to say now that we can't look at this or have a conversation on this now is hypocritical in Mr. McDonald's own. You need to get your ducks in a row then, because downstairs the solicitor didn't stand up and say to Mr. McDonald, oh, by the way, we can't entertain this. We're going to cut the proponents loose, but we can't entertain anything else until a time period. You can't talk about it. You can't. They've already entertained this group who flew here from England, as Councillor Thompson highlighted. They came here with a proposal. So maybe then we need a legal opinion that tells us how long we need to look at before we can step into a second phase. Because it would seem to me if you have somebody willing to do that, to create jobs, have their own money, not ask us for a cent, maybe that's positive also.
Yeah. I don't want to speak for anybody else, Councillor, but I wanted to share with you that the proponent you're talking about was an unsolicited.
I understand that.
Okay. And
I
at
didn't
the
know
time,
we turned away good ideas.
At the time we had 3 proponents successfully selected that went through a competition.
I don't need a history. I'm just saying we've cut them loose now.
Well, we're in the process of doing that, but the point is that may reopen the opportunity. That's why I said to you earlier. So let's follow one process before we get into another. And I think you're just ahead of the curve here. So we had Mr. Beaman tell us that that he was not the author of that opinion, and accordingly he wasn't going to make opinion with regard to that opinion. So that was what he qualified. If I could ask Mr. Felicetti, do you wish to make any further comment for clarification with regard to the presentation?
Is there a particular area you want clarified, Your
Members
Worship?
of Council, I think, well, we've had the opportunity to discuss this. I think that the comments I made were quite clear. Mr. Beaman?
I think the way we can resolve this is to simply have council direct that the 3 proponents be advised that the RFP process is at an end, provided that Weir and Folds, having been informed of what was presented last night, agrees that that can be done. That is within the legal authority of council to do so.
Yes. Good.
So how I would proceed from here is get in touch with the lawyers at Weir and Folds, show them the presentation that went on last night, explain to them the phasing of the process, and say, does that give you any concerns? And if it doesn't, then we would proceed to advise the 3 that they're turned loose.
Okay, we don't. I appreciate that. He's talking about tomorrow being tonight, correct?
No.
He's talking about tomorrow being
I'll
tonight.
withdraw my motion till we have it.
Okay, that's fine. So there's no seconder for your motion anyway. So, Mr. Clerk, can we proceed then?
Yep.
Ratification of, do we have,
We know where we're going.
pardon?
We're clear.
Okay, we voted on that matter, did we? Okay, that's fine. Alrighty, we'll move on to the consent agenda then. Thank you. Members of council, your pleasure. You wish to proceed in whole? Councilor Diodati?
I just had one. I wanted clarification on L 2009-17.
Yes. Receivables?
No.
No, I'm sorry.
Retention of Doug Embleton, auctioneer.
Okay, yes, what would you like?
Couple questions through you, Your Worship, to staff. First question, have we done this method in the past? Okay, and I'll ask a few other parts. Number one, have we done it? Second of all, how's it worked out? And do we have a reserve bid that must be met before we can actually auction them off?
Mr. Beeman, could you speak to those, please?
Yes, we have done it before. It was very, very successful, and yes, we do have a reserve bid.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Councilor Peter Angelo.
Yeah, Your Worship, under municipal accounts, there is a wire transfer there to the Niagara Castle District School Board. Are you going to have to declare conflict on that?
Conflict, okay, no, so noted. Yes, Councilor Diodati.
Yes, Your Worship, and one other item, item PRC 2009-22.
Yes.
We've got that
Yes.
item up, and Your Worship, I would like to move that one, but make it retroactive to include the month of April.
Okay.
Would make that motion, Your Worship?
Okay, moved by Councilor Diodati, seconded by Councilor Carrio. Already, do you want to take that? We'll take that one separately if we could.
Yep.
Any other discussion on that motion? Having seen none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you, Councilor. Anything else? Balance of the consent agenda, moved by Councilor Carrio, seconded by Councilor Maves. Any further comments or questions by members of council? Having seen none, all those in favor? The motion's carried. Okay, Mr. Clerk, are there any additional bylaws or amendments to the bylaws for the council's consideration other than noted earlier?
Exactly. Obviously, 2009-60 will be based on the amendment to recognize 4514 Ferguson as light industrial.
Okay, can I have a motion to introduce the bylaws? Bylaws be given a first reading, moved by Councilor Peter Angelo, seconded by Councilor Diodati. Once again, council's heard the motion. Any comments? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion's carried.
Bylaws 2009-60 to 2009-68 read a first time.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to give the bylaws a second and third reading? Moved by Councilor Peter Angelo, seconded again by Councilor Diodati. Once again, council's heard the motion. Any further questions or comments? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Bylaws 2009-60 to 2009-68 read a second and third time and passed.
Thank you. Alrighty. Any new business? Councilor Carrio.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a couple. The Niagara Parks Commission has asked me to make an announcement about the Legendary Sports Festival this Sunday, April 26th at Legends Golf Complex in Niagara Falls. The day will feature a 5-kilometer cross-country run, street races, family cycling, cancer survivors walk, golf skill challenges, as well as free vendor expo offering a variety of health, wellness products, barbecue, and plenty of prizes. The proceeds are going to be donated to the new cancer center, and obviously the best way to battle cancer is to support our new cancer center. I ask you to visit www.niagaraparks.com to register today. The Parks Commission is inviting all the people in the region out for the day to help to bring our cancer center to a reality. The other thing I have, Your
Councilor
Worship,
Carrio,
is
if I can just interrupt. Where's that venue again? Sorry.
it is at the
Legends?
yeah.
And what days?
Legends
What?
on the Niagara.
Saturday?
Sunday,
Sunday?
April 26th.
Okay, Sunday, April 26th.
This Sunday, April. Go to their website and it'll tell the details.
Thank you.
The other one, Your Worship, is an age-old problem. I've been asked by some people on Ferry Street to bring up now. They also said that they were talking to you. The issue is streetwalkers and prostitutes on Ferry Street. They're asking for council's input or a report back to this council on where we are with this. There's a problem today, and these business owners have said that they have their customers complaining, some of their customers refusing to go into their businesses on that one section from Main Street to Stanley, in around the car wash, the bakery. There's a serious problem, still exists, with the streetwalkers, with prostitutes, and they'd like to know what we're doing about it, what can be done about it. And if the answer is that there's nothing can be done about it, they'd like to know if we could petition Mr. Nicholson to make some adjustments on the law to be able to deal with the problem, because the problem's real, it exists, and it's costing them money now, and it's hurting their businesses, so they're looking for our council to do something to help them.
And Councilor Carey, to answer your question, we did have the district commander there last fall visiting the businesses with me, talking to the business owners. They expressed their concerns and issues that they were dealing with. The police were dealing with those issues. At the pleasure of council, we can certainly direct another request to engage some people, but I have Councilor Thompson and Councilor Ioannoni wish to speak.
Thank you. As a result of being here in the early 80s, I became an expert at prostitution. And it's a very difficult and challenging issue. As a result of Buffalo cracking down on the problem over there, we ended up in our downtown area with a serious problem. And there were a couple of ways that we achieved some success. And in fact, there's a motion on the books that was approved at that particular time by the council, which was never followed through, but it resolved the problem very quickly. And what I found from a gentleman in the downtown area here, a residential homeowner, that every time he went out with a video camera, everybody got lost. And we eventually made it very clear that license plates of Johns would be taken, and warning would be sent to the individuals participating in this kind of activity, to the home, indicating they were in an area of concern because of prostitution, and asked that they not frequent that area. It sends a great message when that kind of correspondence is received at home. And you can put up cameras in different areas, rotating, and I can tell you very shortly, once that is known, and you have to put up a sign in the area, video surveillance, I can tell you that that's going to resolve the problem. So I'd like the staff to deal with that, and I think there's already a motion on the books many years ago to have the authority to obtain a couple of cameras, rotate them in the area, make it known public, have signs put up in the area, and concentrate also on the Johns. And I think you'll find that that's going to solve some problems.
We do have consent, I believe, to do that downtown, and that's right, Councilor Carey. I have Councilor Ioannoni and Councilor Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've never been a big fan of a notice going home to a family where a wife could read it and somewhat destroy the family. You know that. You were actually one of our viewers when we had the John School. You don't want the ramifications to go past the John himself, but that's besides the point. When you were mayor, you had the Mayor's Prostitution Committee, not a highly publicized one, but it brought all the business areas and the different levels of police department. I think you actually chaired one or two of them, but they kind of went by the wayside.
Well, it was ad hoc as required, but we could certainly reinstigate
that was going to be my motion. I found it when you pull all the police departments together and you pull all the businesses together and City Hall together to find some sort of a solution, I found it worked, and for years it worked. And maybe we could throw that ad hoc committee back together and find a unified solution that, I know that the camera works, there's liabilities for that, who's viewing it, privacy policy.
Cameras everywhere now.
Yeah, but and you have to have privacy policies to back it, and you also have to have liability on people believing that the camera's being viewed, and if somebody's harmed, thinking somebody, there's whole ramifications to that. But it's more hurt the family when a letter goes home that I don't want to see happen. And that happened all the time. We can attest to that. We put almost 400 people through the John School, and it didn't break up families. And I just think the ramifications are huge. Maybe we can take that step first.
Well, we can certainly do both. We would. I can appreciate Councilor's experience in that respect, but we can do that. The ad hoc committee is there to be established as we call the chair, so we can do that. So I'd be glad to instigate that again. Councilor Carrió.
I just pleased to second the motion. We include that.
Okay.
And the business owners, I'm sure, would be happy with anything we do because they're getting frustrated. And, I saw it the other day when I drove out of there on that Ferry Street. It's just disgusting. And I could see some people being very intimidated by that. So I think the businesses shouldn't have to put up with that. They're paying their taxes. It's hard enough today to make money. and they shouldn't have to put up with somebody chasing customers away from their doors, Your Worship. So second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. We will certainly engage the police, and possibly staff could keep that availability of that process available to them when we have our meeting. Mr. Clerk?
We got a seconder, we don't have a mover.
Councillor Thompson moved it. Okay, all those in favor? Motion's carried. We have new business. Councillor Diodati.
Yes, Your Worship. Just quickly, just wanted to comment how nice our gateway sign is coming up Sandplant Hill,
Yes.
Mountain Road exit.
Yes.
I don't know
Nice
if anyone's had a chance to drive by.
nice and bright.
Signature Signs did complete it, and compliments to staff as well for directing Signature Signs. They did a great job, and especially I was really impressed with the lighting. That's always been an issue in the past because the vegetation grows and creates big shadows on the lights, and it's hard to read it in the evening. And now they've got LED lighting behind the letters, and it looks really nice, especially nighttime, so you get a chance to take a drive by.
Councillor, I appreciate your comments. I was waiting for the members of council to bring it forward to see how long it took them before time went on before they mentioned it here. But thank you for that, and it does make a big difference. It's certainly a very, very bright sign and very well illuminated, so it represents our city well. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Peter Angelo, second by Councillor Diodati. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you very much.